What's going on, guys? This is Martyrs Brigade 99 coming to you once again with another session of Dark Souls PvP. Alright guys, we're back at it again with another video dedicated to the Battle of the Build series. Now, first and foremost, I'd like to give a shout out to Akeem. He's my next volunteer. Right, and I think he put forth an awesome demonstration of his status effects build. Now, his build obviously is based around status effects. He will be using several pyromancies. The large club, which to the extent that you are not familiar, the large club can inflict poison. And we're not even talking about when you buff it with the rotten resin. Right, it inflicts poison. He'll be using the poison mist in addition to toxic mist, acid surge, and any other status effects that he can think of that I can't at this particular time. So, to the extent you guys are not familiar, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about my build, the strengths and weaknesses. We're going to talk about his build, strengths and weaknesses, and any other topics that we can cover in between. Alright, now this is one of my hybrid builds. It's just a Faith Mage, nothing really special about it. Pretty sure you guys have seen me use this build before. And actually I have two hybrid builds. I have my Faith Mage and I have a Pyro Mage. Now, in the event that you guys may want to see a little bit more footage of my Faith Mage, you can go ahead and check out a Battle of the Build. Actually, it wasn't Battle of the Build. It was a Battle of the Uploader series that I did between myself and Fourth Sequence. And actually, there's a number of other videos where I use my Faith Mage. I can't really think of them. And actually, let me take that back. There's a video, Battle of the Build series that I did. I think it's called The Wolfsin's Butcher. Right? In that particular video, I'm not using my Faith Mage, but I am using my Pyro Cleric. Right, so those are two videos in particular that I can think of where I'm using my hybrid builds. Now, I'm kind of thinking about trying to put a intelligence pyro build together. Shout out to good old Rosie, and I won't forget. They basically did an Xbox version of the Battle of the Build series, wherein good old Rosie is using a pretty dangerous looking intelligence pyro build. Now, I have never experimented with that particular combination, and just by looking at that video, I think I might have to experiment with it. And I think that's one of the benefits to the Battle of the Build series. And that's one of the reasons why I kind of thought about it. Because, you know, like I've said plenty of times in the past, one of the goals to this channel, right, is to spark player creativity with regard to putting builds together. And actually, I think with some of the contributions that I have made and contributions that other peoples have made, in addition to, I mean, just the innovation and creativity that people may have had on their own, I have seen so many different builds that is just absolutely amazing. And I think it gives big time credit to the community and the individual players in particular. Right, a lot of the guys are definitely experimenting. They're getting outside of the standard katana builds, and I think that's a wonderful thing. Now, one of the downsides to having this more recent patch, you know, I've been doing PvP for a long time, and even before I started to do uploads, I used to like experimenting with builds, which is one of the reasons why I was especially happy when I found out about the bottomless box and the dragon head fast leveling glitches. Now, for a lot of you honor dudes that are all on this trip about, you know, it's a glitch and therefore it's wrong, I do not share that sentiment. Right, now, when it comes to creating builds and fast leveling, right, no one can ever say, right, that I ever used the dragon head to stun anybody, for which it was fixed. But I mean, a lot of us know, to the extent you kind of had this game for a while, a lot of you guys knew the headache that came with that dragon head version, where you can spew like 1,000,000 poison darts or 1,000,000 or whatever it is that you can spew, or you can have this obnoxious kind of dragon roar that basically would just push you back into oblivion. Never used it for that reason. I only used it for the purposes of creating fast builds. Not only myself, but a lot of the other guys that PvP pretty often. And the fact that it's been patched is really a turnoff with regards to creating new builds. Big time. And here's why. Every now and then I'll come up with a new idea. Right? And now that they have fixed those glitches, I have to invest like 2 days just trying to put a build together. Now, to the extent that it's a build that I have never created in the past, many of you guys will know creating builds is not just as simple as, well, I made a build and therefore I'm ready for action. No, right? Because there's pros and cons to builds. There's things that you discover in your experimentation that, you may say, you know what, I want to change, I want to do this, I want to do that. And sometimes just having that ridiculous Mugen monkey is not sufficient. Now, is it good? Is it a start point? Right? Is it a blank slate to where you can kind of draft your ideas and see them for yourself? Yes. But just because you see it on the Mugen monkey doesn't mean that it's always good, practically speaking. Case in point, I just created a vampire build, right? And it focuses on bleeding the crap out of all of my opponents. It uses the Life Hunt Scythe, the Blood Bite Ring, and 2 gold tracers. One in the left hand and one in the right. Those are my secondary weapons. Now, theoretically, it's an awesome build. Practically, the way I created it in its original form, it had a lot of flaws, right? So it wasn't the idea itself that was flawed. It was more so of how I put it together because, I had a Blood Bite Ring and I had a Poise Ring. I did not have a Ring of Favor and Protection. Now, after I got to experimenting with it, after, already investing 2 days in putting it together and farming the soul levels to get up to the point that I needed, I had to experiment with it. So I did a lot of PvP, and I failed a lot with it. Mainly because I was using the Witch's Garb, the Witch's Hat, Witch's Cloak, along with the Iron Gauntlets and the Hollow Soldier Waistcloth. And the defense was so low, even with 99 humanity. I had like 280 something defense. And it was ridiculous because these guys, just one hit from a mediocre weapon would kind of just knock off like 400 damage. 400 damage. And the intent was to fast roll, right, with the Life Hunt Scythe. And somehow trying to maintain decent vitality and everything else. I say all that to say that I really hope in the next Souls game they do something for people that like to PvP exclusively for the most part. Because it is so discouraging when you spend 2 days to create a build, and then even after you create the build, you spend a lot of time experimenting with it in PvP just to find out that you have to rebuild it because you have realized some strengths and weaknesses that you may want to improve or expand upon. So after spending, I'll say, a full week of experimenting with this build, now I'm looking at a situation where I have to delete the character and potentially create it again. But who wants to do that? Right? There's no quick fast leveling, and there's no way that I can bottomless box the items that I would need for that build, and it's so discouraging. So that's it about that. You guys are not going to see, well, actually you will see a little PvP with that vampire build, and I failed so miserably, mainly because I needed a new equipment setup. And the way that I originally equipped it, I can't upgrade, I can't bottomless box the armor that I need. I can't bottomless box the weapons that I need. I just basically have to go to the game from square one, spending 10 hours maybe, going through the game twice just to put it together, and it's such a turn off. But you guys will see that I'm going to be playing a guy, and I basically got destroyed, and I really don't think I got destroyed in particular because my tactics were weak, but I just think in the way that I put the build together, with the fast rolling and everything else, I didn't have sufficient defense. Right, so enough about that, because I need to go ahead and focus on this battle build. So enough about that rant. So this is my Faith Mage. You guys can see I just transitioned from my Faith Mage over to my Pyro Mage, and you guys can basically see the strengths and weaknesses. Now, some of the weaknesses that I have with regard to both versions of my hybrid build is that I have relatively low poise. Both builds have 44 poise. Right now, although they do have the benefit of having some good castings, both are strong. You guys know the potential of pyromancies. You guys also know the potential of force and wrath of the gods. So I am strong in that regard, but when it comes to the damage, I actually have decent defense on both of these builds. I think on both of them I have somewhere around 350 defense. But at the same time, the 44 poise really kind of makes me vulnerable to these strength builds, right? Because even with a one-handed attack, as you guys can see for yourself, I have the potential to get stunned. Now, one of the good things, it kind of makes an obligation on my part to get a lot of practice with my toggle switching, which is not really all that bad because, I kind of have a lot of practice with toggle switching. So, it's cool, but at the same time, you definitely have to be careful with regard to when you attack, when you do not, and when you get hit with some of those great swords or, strength weapons. You definitely have to have fast reflexes with regard to the toggle switching. So, that's basically it with regard to the hybrid builds. Now, one of the benefits that I think I have with the Cleric Pyro as opposed to the Faith Mage is the fact that I can use plus 15 weapons effectively. Now with the Faith Mage, I'm basically reduced to enchanted weapons. Either enchanted weapons, the Moonlight Butterfly, the Moonlight Greatsword, or the Butterfly Horn. So basically, if I'm faced against a Faith build that is using the Magic Barrier or the Great Magic Barrier, I'm basically screwed with regard to the Faith Mage. The same cannot be said with my Pyro Cleric, because if you guys can see, I'm using plus 15 weapons. So I have the benefit of using the plus 15 weapons in addition to the Pyro and the Miracles. So that's good. So that's basically the only perceived weakness I have with regard to the Faith Mage. Right? If I'm facing against someone who uses Great Magic Barrier, I'm basically screwed. Now, let's talk about his build. I think he has a groovy build. He's fast rolling with the status effects. You guys can see that he's throwing dung pies. He's using that large club pretty effectively. He's buffing it every now and then whenever he can get time. Buffing it, and actually that was an awesome parry right there. I fed right into it. Awesome parry. Like I was saying, so whenever he has an opportunity to buff, he can go ahead and supplement the poison that the large club already have with the rotten resin. And actually, if you have low resistance or poison defense, I mean, you can basically get inflicted with poison with just one shot. Especially for all those guys who like to use Havel pieces, because, I mean, as I've said plenty of times in the past, that Havel armor is especially weak when it comes to poison resistance. Right, and that's why a lot of times whenever I see guys using that Havel's armor, either I break out a rotten resin or I break out my poison arrows. Right, because either the Havel's armor or the dragon form is basically a one-shot poison infliction as soon as they get hit with it. Alright, so that's basically it. I really don't see too many weaknesses with regard to his build. Now maybe when it comes to that large club, You definitely need to experiment with that large club because it kind of has an awkward move set. The R2s are really good, but the R1s you kind of want to play unlocked, especially when you're doing the one-handed R1 and even the two-handed R1. But once they hit, you're kind of done for because I think with 40 strength, it has an AR of, I think, like 615, something like that. So that large club is especially effective, especially when you mix up the attacks. Now, too many people who use the large club and the great club only use the two-handed rolling R1 as an attack. And I know why they do it, but I really think that a lot of those guys that only use that technique need to diversify their tactics because you really don't give the weapon any justice when all you do is rolling two-handed R1. You know, it's kind of like that smash down. All they do is chase you around and smash down, smash down, smash down over and over again. And I think they exploit the fact that you cannot block it nor can you parry it. Right? Well, actually, you can block it, but you can't parry it, so it's basically no defense. If you're kind of sitting there and you're not blocking, you're basically going to get pummeled with the smash down attack, and it cannot be parried. I've tried that thing plenty of times. And you would think when you pay close attention to that two-handed smash down attack, when you pay close attention, there's a very brief window, right, from the time that you get out of the roll to the time that you actually smash. You would think that you could parry then, but you actually can't. And I think a lot of people kind of take advantage of that exploit. But I mean, hey, can't help it. It kind of comes with the weapon. All right. So if you guys will notice, he have definitely inflicted me with poison on a number of occasions, and he's kind of being effective with hitting me with that Armor of Thorns. Now, one especially thing that I think is good, man, I'm kind of getting tongue-tied for some reason. One thing that I think is especially good with regard to him using the Armor of Thorns is not only does it look good, but also for a lot of these ridiculous roll BSers, constant roll BSers, right? Not for the guys that kind of use it whenever they can and actually couldn't hit that replenishment fast enough. One good thing about it is that if you kind of roll in time, that Armor of Thorns will negate you being roll BS'd. Right? There's a video out there. I can't really think about it. I think it's kind of like roll BS defense or something like that. Wherein if you have at least one piece of the Armor of Thorns, you will be able to negate a roll BS attempt as long as you roll in time. Because I know a lot of times when you guys are getting roll BS, you can see on your screen where you have been able to jump away, but for whatever reason you still get hit with the BS. Right? And I mean, I'll even be honest, there's been times that I've rolled BS people and you can hear their armor rolling against the ground, or you can even see it, but for whatever reason they still get BS'd. And this is why I think that's really a messed up move. And I kind of do roll BS's during my random invasions, but when it comes to formal fights, I mean, I'll do it sometimes depending upon what's going on. Case in point, let's just say you BS'd me or you riposte me, right? And you're standing right behind me and you're attempting a wake up hit. In some cases, I'll fast roll BS you then, right? Just to discourage you from standing right behind. I think that's a real bad habit for a lot of those guys to do that. And actually, sometimes I'm guilty of it. I'll do it sometimes, right? I'll kind of stand right next to somebody, either for a kick and follow up with an immediate attack. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And, sometimes guys punish me with it. But I say all that to say that there are some instances where I roll BS someone, and not only do I see them attempt to roll, but I can even hear their armor rolling. And that's why a lot of people think it's fair, even though some of the guys who use roll BS as their primary tactic, even though they'll tell you that it is fair. Listen, I've done it so many times in the past that you can see for yourself that they attempted to roll. And if you don't see the body movement, even though you catch them with the BS, You can hear their armor rolling across the ground. And I think that's why so many people dislike it, even myself. Right? And like I said before, there's been times when I've been roll BS by people, and it's like, you know what? I'm not going to get ticked off, mainly because they did not use it as a primary method of engagement. But my gripes against roll BS is basically the guys who use it as a primary, and they know exactly who I'm talking about. It's one of those guys that all they do is look for roll BS attempts. That's all they do. They're not really incorporating any other attacks. They're only looking for roll BS attempts. Right, and I fought a couple guys like that just recently. I was in the Berg with my vampire build, and this guy, he was like Darkwood Grain raining with a like the Gravelord sword, and that's all that guy did. He just skipped around the whole arena, you know, flipped nonstop, and just roll BS me over and over and over and over and over again. That's it, right? No other tactics. No other strategies. He only roll BS. Right. So for a lot of you guys that do not, that are not objective when you're listening to what I'm saying, let me make this clear. If you do it now, every now and then, right? I don't have a problem with it. It's annoying, you know, just like backstabs are annoying, just like R1 spamming is annoying. But it is what it is. When you use roll BSing as your primary method of engagement, that's when it gets annoying. No different than BS fishing gets annoying. No different than, you know, parry spamming can get annoying. Anything done in excess can be annoying, and that's what I'm talking about. Right? I'm not saying that I disagree with it. Absolutely. I'm saying when you're faced against guys that is their only means or primary means of engagement. Same with backstab fishers, right? Because I know you guys have faced people who that's all they do. You'll fight them and that's all they do. They just look for opportunities to BS. It is so annoying. Right? So enough about that. I think that's enough rants about that. Alright, so you guys can see this guy is really tightening me up on a lot of occasions. And I think he's doing a good job because, I mean, this guy just kind of beats me to a pulp in this series. But it is what it is. Right? Because when you PvP as much as I do, then you will understand that getting better, right, is not always about winning all the time. Right? Sometimes you have to, and actually, just to make a good point, that's where experimenting comes into play, especially when you're using new builds, right? You have to experiment, and a lot of times when you're experimenting, it will cause you to lose a lot, right? Because when you're dealing with a new build, you have to figure out what the strengths are, what the weaknesses are, what you should do better, you know, what armor selection might be better, what improvements you can make, whether you can get away with 31 or 36 poise, whether you may need 53 poise, maybe you may need 76 poise. But these are the things that you figure out during experimenting. And a lot of times it will cause you to fail a lot. I failed so much with my vampire build. It was absolutely ridiculous. And like I said before, mainly it was because of the armor selection. So, you know, they may not come out with another bottomless box glitch. And when I say they may not, I mean, you know, no one may discover a new way to do it. But I really hope when Dark Souls 2 come out, they kind of do something primarily for people like me who, you know, I can appreciate the game after the first, you know, 3 or 4, maybe 5 times you play it. But after that, you just want to dedicate your time to PvP. Right? As a matter of fact, I kind of wish they kind of do something like, let's just say you play through the game. Right? And after beating the game X amount of times, you would kind of have a locker or a bottomless box that basically will have everything in it. right? And whenever you want to create new builds or something, you can just kind of have access to it, right? Because you played the game so many times. You have earned your little platinum trophy, meaning you found every weapon, right? And you're able to do that. Now, I can even understand if you say, come on, dude, but I mean, that's just kind of unfair, because why should you automatically have plus 15? I won't even say that you automatically have plus 15, but they definitely need to do something with regard to that Titanite slab drop rate, because that's another turnoff, right? Think about it. Let's say I want to do a strength build, but I don't want to use Black Knight weapons or weapons that will require for you to have the Twinkling Titanite. I mean, do I really want to farm for like 2 months straight just trying to get 15 Titanite slabs? No, I don't. You know, do I want to go through 5 playthroughs just to get 15 Titanite slabs? No, I don't. Because there's basically 3 per playthrough, to the extent that you are not farming them. You get 1 by the NPC. Right, you get 1 from the whatever that demon is up there. That'll give you access to the strange doll, and you get 1 in the DLC. So that's it. And think about it, guys. Most cases, you kind of need that from your armor. Because think about it. You have gauntlets, leggings, breastplate, and a helm. So that's 4 Titanite slabs right there, to the extent that you don't need the Twinkling Titanite, let alone your weapons. So I really hope they do something for a lot of us PvPers in the next Soul series. Alright, so that's pretty much it. So I hope you guys basically enjoyed the series. He put forth an awesome display with his status effects build. He put forth a good demonstration of how you can kind of put these status effects combinations together, especially with the large club, the toxic mist, the acid surge, for which they really need to do some help on that acid surge, because it sucks. In addition to my build, pros and cons of both hybrids that I used. Alright guys, once again, thanks Akeem for your awesome display. I hope you guys enjoyed the series. Marty's Brigade.